He was a man who seemed unshakable, kind, consistent, and calm. But behind the smile was something no one saw coming. When the world lost Malcolm-Jamal Warner, the headlines called it a drowning, an accident, just bad timing and bad waves. But that's not what his mother believes, and it's not what his closest friend says either. Because the truth is, Malcolm had been changing, quietly. He was pulling away, writing more, talking less, and now, in the wake of his death, those closest to him are coming forward with messages, memories, and one haunting line from his final journal entry that changes everything. There was no scandal, no drama, just silence, a voice lost in the ocean, and the echoes left behind. In this video, we'll unpack the clues Malcolm left us, the ones hiding in Instagram posts, the ones he wrote by hand but never shared. We'll hear from his mother, from a childhood friend who says he was saying goodbye and none of us saw it. This wasn't just an accident. This was a man who may have seen the end coming before any of us did. 2 weeks before his death, Malcolm-Jamal Warner posted a photo on Instagram, black and white, alone on a foggy beach. The caption, "Peace isn't always peaceful." At first, fans thought it was poetry. Now, it feels like a farewell. According to his childhood friend Leon Thomas, something about Malcolm had shifted. He wasn't depressed, Leon says, but he was distant, reflective, like he was carrying something none of us could name. It wasn't just mood changes. Malcolm began canceling meetings, pulling away from collaborators, even missing scheduled podcast recordings. When asked, he'd just say, "I'm recentering." But the biggest red flag came 2 nights before the drowning. His mother, Pamela Warner, says he called her late, out of nowhere, and instead of their usual jokes and small talk, he got serious. "You did your job, Mama," he said. "You raised a good man." "I thought he was just being sweet," she whispered. Now I wonder, was he saying goodbye? Pamela says she can't stop replaying his last voicemail, just his voice, soft and calm. "I'm okay, I promise." He wasn't. The signs were there, cryptic posts, late-night calls, emotional withdrawal, but no one connected the dots, not until it was too late. This wasn't just a man looking for rest, it was someone stepping away from the world quietly. And the saddest part? He did it so gently, no one noticed. Not even the people who loved him the most. After Malcolm's funeral, his family returned to his Los Angeles apartment to pack up his things. Tucked inside a leather bag was something unexpected, a journal, old, weathered, and filled with handwritten pages. His thoughts, poems, and quiet pain. There was no goodbye letter, no dramatic confession, but the words inside spoke louder than anything he ever said publicly. One entry read, "They still call me Theo, but I've lived decades since. They don't see that. I've grown, bled, healed, and they still only see the boy." Another, written days before his Costa Rica trip, was even darker. "Some days I wonder if disappearing would finally make them listen." His mother, Pamela, couldn't finish reading the entire thing. "He always acted like he was okay. He didn't want to burden anyone. But now I see he was carrying more than we knew." Malcolm's close friend Leon confirmed the journal's authenticity. He called it more than therapy. It was preparation. But one final line, scribbled in uneven handwriting, shook everyone. "If I vanish, let it be known. I tried to be more than the memory they held me in." That line went viral. Fans reposted it. Artists turned it into murals. It didn't feel like poetry. It felt like truth. Like the message of a man who lived with grace but died still misunderstood. He wasn't saying goodbye to the world. He was saying goodbye to the version of himself the world refused to let go of. July 20th, 2025. Playa Grande, Costa Rica. A paradise with a dark reputation. Locals know the rip currents are deadly, but most tourists don't. That morning, Malcolm texted his friend Leon. "Taking it slow today. Need to breathe." Witnesses saw him at the shoreline just before sunset. He wasn't swimming. He was standing still, waist deep, staring out at the waves. One said it looked like he was meditating. Another said he looked at peace, too at peace. Then, without warning, he went under. A nearby man dove in to save him. He didn't even know who Malcolm was. just saw someone in trouble. They were both pulled ashore unconscious. CPR revived the stranger. Malcolm didn't make it. Paramedics said he didn't fight. No signs of panic. The man who tried to save him later whispered, "It was like he let go." The autopsy called it accidental drowning. But those final moments don't feel accidental, especially not after what surfaced next. Malcolm's unreleased podcast episode, recorded just days earlier, was titled, "What We Leave Behind." In it, he spoke about closure, soft exits, and the beauty of leaving quietly. His mother, Pamela, refused to comment directly on the podcast, but in a later interview, she said, "My son didn't die in that ocean. He started disappearing long before." And maybe that's the hardest truth, that the ocean didn't take Malcolm-Jamal Warner. It just finished what the silence had already begun. To most of the world, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was Theo Huxtable, the good son, the safe smile, the TV kid who grew up without scandal. But that was only part of the story. Off camera, he became a poet, a Grammy-winning musician, a mentor, and a quiet advocate for mental health. He hosted Not All Hood, a podcast that tackled masculinity, therapy, and race with honesty and heart. His jazz albums were raw and reflective. He supported young Black actors, not on red carpets, but in living rooms and workshops, without posting about it once. Yet, the industry kept introducing him the same way. Theo from The Cosby Show. That label followed him like a shadow. His friend Leon said, "It was like they froze him in time. No matter what he created, they wouldn't let him grow past that boy." At his memorial in Los Angeles, there were no reporters, just candles, jazz playing softly, and in the center of the room, his favorite black fedora resting on an empty chair. His mother, Pamela, placed a handwritten note beside it. 5 words. "You were never just Theo." That image, one empty chair, one hat, one truth, said more than any tribute. Because the world lost more than a character. It lost a man who evolved and was never fully seen for it. And now, the silence around that truth is deafening. Malcolm-Jamal Warner didn't leave this world with chaos. He left with silence. But in that silence, he left messages, written, spoken, and felt. This wasn't the kind of Hollywood ending we're used to. No scandal, no meltdown, just a man, slowly disappearing in front of everyone. He wasn't reckless, he wasn't spiraling. He was tired of being boxed in, of being remembered for someone he no longer was, of smiling for a world that never fully saw him. And the truth is, he may have known. The journal, the captions, the final voice messages, his last podcast episode, all of it painted a picture, not of a man giving up, but of a man letting go. A man who gave the world poetry while carrying his own pain. He didn't rage, he whispered. And that whisper is what we all hear now. If Malcolm ever made you feel something through his acting, his words, his music, don't let this be the end of his story. Let it be the beginning of a deeper conversation about mental health, about identity, about seeing the people we think we already know. Because his final words weren't in a headline, they were in a journal. "If I vanish, let it be known. I tried to be more than the memory they held me in." He did try. And now it's our turn to carry that truth forward, for him and for every soul silently fading behind a smile. Rest in power, Malcolm. You were more. And now, you always will be.